Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and go over to Google Classroom, present my screen for you guys. Okay, I'm going to reload it, see if it comes up. Under social studies. It is not there yet, so we're going to, well, I schedule them to post at 12:30, but sometimes the internet doesn't post them on time. So I'm assigning it to you guys now. Now you should be able to reload your Google Classroom. And you should have a new assignment called Ancient Greek Geography. Okay? This is very similar to what we did last week with Egypt, where we have the Google Slides that we'll have open. And then the PDF opens as well. And I will be reading information to you. You guys will be filling things out as we go along. Okay? So if we were in person, we would do this in stations where I would put the information up around the room and you would be walking around the room and doing this kind of on your own. Yeah, but we can't do that because COVID. So we get to do it like this instead. I'm going to go ahead and get zoomed in on the Google Slides. Let's have you guys as well. Yeah, because there wasn't COVID until the end of the year.
We're supposed to come back to school too, like last year. Like when we went home and then they told us that we weren't able to come back to school. And so like a week and then it became like so many months.
Well, we didn't know how long COVID was going to last. So we could only plan. Yeah, we could only plan for so much at a time, and then it got shut. School got shut down altogether. Okay.
But weren't we supposed to come back to school?
I think so, yes.
Oh.
All right.
You want to get our recess taken away?
You guys are close to getting that recess taken away. All right, I'm going to zoom in on this information. So I have the PDF open for the Greek geography assignment, and then I have the Google Slides open. Slide number 1 is just talking about how to fill it in. We know how to fill it in. You click on the red box, and the text box is already there for you. And then if you need to zoom in, again, we can do that, which we're probably going to need to. I think I'm going to go to 100 for zooming in. Nice and zoomed in. Yes, Alex? Yes, you do need to double click into the boxes, and it should be there. There's a text box right there. I don't know what you mean. What?
I said, I was on the Google, the thing, the information, not the ones with the text box. The Google Slides.
So you have them open?
That's the one of them.
Okay.
I don't know how these work.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read them. This one says Station 1. So that means it goes with slide number 2 that says Station 1. There are 2 questions we're going to answer here. It says, in what ways was traveling to ancient Greece difficult? So we're moving on from Egypt. Now we're talking about Greece. A good answer should include at least 5 examples from the text with complete sentences. You might have to double click into there a lot. So we're going to list 5 ways that traveling to Greece or inside Greece was hard. And then for number 2 there, it says, how might the harshness of the Greek landscape create isolated communities? Whoa, undo. What is happening? Okay. I lost my text box on that one. Okay, I'll create. I just copy and pasted another one.
The heck are you trying to do?
He's trying to copy and paste the text box.
And I did copy and paste the text box. There it is. So now we have a text box in each one. Okay. No, I accidentally deleted mine. So I'm going to go ahead and read this information to you guys. and we will kind of fill it out together. You guys will need to write in complete sentences. I will probably just make bullet points of the information you need to write down. So if you want to start off as we go with bullet points that I write and then you make them into complete sentences later, that is fine. But for now, you need to at least be listening while I read. So our first part is isolation in ancient Greece. Now, if you remember from math, we actually went over what it means to isolate something. What does it mean?
Sitting
To make something alone. Isolation means that you are alone. So we're going to talk about how people were alone or separated in ancient Greece. So it says, located in the southeastern part of the European continent, Greece today is home to over 11 million people. Today, taxpayer-funded roads and highways make traveling a breeze. However, it was not always this easy. So nowadays, there are roads and everything in Greece. You can travel super easily throughout Greece. Yoshi, take your hat off. Greece's geography is defined by its rough, mountainous terrain. This created a very difficult life for ancient people. Traveling was arduous, which means hard, and communication between settlements rarely took place. Wooden wagons would shatter on the rocks, very few roads existed, and the possibility of being robbed was extremely high. To make the journey easier, the Greeks used the help of mules and donkeys to carry luggage. However, the lack of fresh water made this very difficult. Finding adequate lodging was also difficult. What does lodging mean? Places to stay. Good. They didn't have hotels all over the place like we do now. Lucky travelers might pay a small fee for a room in a private home or an inn. Others were forced to stay in a liche, or a public shelter that provided nothing more than a bed. One alternative to many difficult journeys by land was to travel by water. Many Greeks made their living by fishing and trading across the Aegean Sea. However, this does not mean that sailing was safe. The Aegean Sea is cluttered with islands that even an expert sailor has to be careful to avoid. Even the smallest slip of focus could spell disaster for the entire crew. Just like on land, robbery was also common, as pirates often roamed the Aegean and the Mediterranean seas looking for vulnerable victims. So before we keep reading, let's look at our thing and at least list a couple of the reasons so far why traveling in ancient Greece was difficult, because we had a couple things there. What's one thing that made it hard? Say that again? The wagons could shatter. Wagons shattered on rocks. Okay, what else made it difficult to travel in ancient Greece? Robbery was another reason. You could get robbed. What about the terrain? What was the land like? Was it flat and easy to go across? No, what was it?
and there were pirates.
Okay, there were pirates on the sea, right? Good.
There were pirates.
Okay, and then if we go back to the land really quick, was it flat and desert, lots of hills, mountains?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Go back and read it. It's there for you.
We haven't read it all the way. Though.
Well, the part that I'm asking you about has been read. What was the land like?
The roads were very bumpy.
Bumpy. But like, think about the actual geography of
Oh, there was no
mountains. It's all mountains. If you look at this picture right here, do you see all those mountains in there? Can you imagine having to like drive? It's right there. Drive, like take a wagon over all of those things.
It went down.
It's slow, that's why.
Okay, it's super mountainous, hard to go, like travel. Yes, Yoshi.
I don't know what's happening. Things that are crazy or something. Something previous. Oh, they're trying to come with you. Oh, why did I do that? I thought I hit P.
That means print sometimes.
Oh, really?
Okay, is there anything else that we can add to this list? We need at least one more reason, but we still have a little bit left to read, so we can always wait.
What else was there? Water? Oh, no.
Yeah, let's keep.
No fresh water.
Okay, there was no fresh water.
Wait, was it all salt water?
I mean, it's surrounded by sea, so yes. If you didn't have the means of getting fresh water and carrying a lot.
That's salt water.
Oh yeah, that's salt water.
How would you celebrate when there's no fresh water? Because they need water. There's probably a lot of people that die.
All right, so there's your 5 things. Just keep in mind that this needs to be complete sentences.
Okay, so we gotta go back.
You might need to go back, or you can type it out right now. What?
Water only.
No, it isn't.
So we have to write. We just put salt water only. Is that a sentence?
It is not a sentence. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. So we read down to the bottom of that page. We're going to go up to this top part. This might also give you some other ideas about why it was difficult to travel through ancient Greece. It says, Greek travelers knew the physical dangers and hardships that awaited any journey outside their homeland. Homer, the famous Greek historian and writer, sought to warn travelers in another way. He popularized myths of sea creatures waiting to devour unprepared soldiers. A 6-headed monster named Scylla and Charybdis, a monster who drowned travelers in a whirlpool, were real in the eyes of many Greeks. Unless forced to travel, many Greeks chose to stay in their homeland where they were accustomed, safe, and had the support of family and friends nearby. As a result, people all throughout Greece became isolated from one another. People developed different ways of life, developed different governments, and valued different gods due to a lack of communication. In some cases, villages would be just a few miles apart. However, the dangerous, difficult mountains kept these people from knowing each other. Isolationism is not all bad. One benefit the ancient Greeks gained by staying isolated was protection. The mountains provided security against aggressive invaders and allowed many villagers to grow and expand. Villages to grow and expand without a deep fear of others. However, as populations expanded, Greek communities soon became cramped. At the same time, the rarity of tillable farmland meant that the Greeks would have to break the isolation if they were to feed their growing community. So if we look at number 2 on there, how might the harshness of the Greek landscape create isolated communities? So why were they so isolated?
Because of the mountains. Because they're afraid of the water?
Okay, so
They were afraid of each other.
Greeks were afraid of the water because of what? Yeah, which are they myths or are they real sea creatures? Yeah, so we're gonna say sea creatures, but like they weren't real, but they were real to the Greek people back then.
But weren't they afraid of each other?
They're afraid. The Greeks were afraid of the water because of the sea creatures. And what about the mountains? Yoshi, you mentioned that the mountains made it hard. Why?
Because they have to go all the way up. They have to go all the way down.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. The mountains made it difficult to travel between communities.
You guys had that.
Okay.
Because of
So I'm going to go to about here just so you can see both of those. I'll zoom in for you guys over here.
That's as good as it's gonna get. Sorry.
So take about, yeah, we need to get this one good. Take about 2 minutes and make these.
Why is that so take the computer up there?
Take about
That's what I said.
2 minutes. People take about 2 minutes and get these 2 questions written into complete sentences, please. I'll give you a little bit of time. Ignore me for just 1 second.
You look like you got fun signs on the bottom of your shoes. Oh, I found it. Well, were actually sea creatures really that scary?
Well, they thought that these sea creatures were real, so they didn't. Yeah, they didn't want to be killed by these things.
What kind of creature was it?
So it was this big, so the way that it's described is that inside the water, there's this big sea creature that basically sucks in all of the water, and it creates this really big whirlpool and sucks in anything that gets caught in the whirlpool. And then right next to that is this big cliff, and there's another creature up there that has these long arm tentacle things that would snatch sailors off of the ship and just snatch the sailors and eat them. So people didn't want to sail past those things because they would either get sucked into the whirlpool or get pulled off the ship by whatever that creature was up in the cliff.
It was called the crazy.
So that's kind of the myth that goes along with that one.
Did you know it was called the crazy?
It's a kraken, not a kraken.
Kraken. Isn't that like a myth creature? It's like
The kraken is a mythical sea creature as well.
Isn't it a big squid?
I don't know.
Or a big octopus?
I don't know for sure.
Release.
Go sit down. Thank you. All right, we're going to do about 30 more seconds on this one, and we're going to look at number 3, slide number 3. This is being recorded, so if you do need it later, it will be on Schoology for you.
It won't let me double click on this word.
Okay, sorry.
This is what I don't know.
All right. So we're going to go ahead, and go to slide number 3. This one has some stuff about interviewing an ancient Greek person. We're going to provide answers based off of what they would have said. So number 1 says, what are some of the difficulties you faced when growing crops for your family? So what are the difficulties with that? And the next question, what crops did you choose to grow and why? The next one, other than growing crops, what else did you and your people do to survive? And number 4, I noticed that you often are at war with your neighbors. Why were they at war a lot? So that's what we're looking for in our next one. So our next one is about farming, and we're going to go ahead and get reading on this one, looking out for those questions that I just read to you. The farming one says, the mountainous landscape made farming in ancient Greece a challenge. First, with 80% of the Greek land covered with mountains, the land available to be farmed was in very short supply. This led early settlements to be created around forts that aimed to protect what little land was available. Second, as communities began to grow, farmers had to develop innovative methods in order to provide enough food for their growing settlements. So, to create more land for crop production, the ancient Greeks developed what is known as terrace farming, which is this picture right here. Notice how there's steps?
That's like summer is needed.
Those are not steps.
We're coming back.
Okay.
That's the road where they grow their crops.
Well, the one in the middle right here looks like it's a road to get up there. And then the other ones, they have crops growing on the different levels. Yeah. So, yes, they are that high. A terrace is a flat area that is made on a slope. The Greeks would carve out flat levels into the side of the mountain and then use that flat land to provide additional food for their community. These mini farms produced a good variety of crops, including barley and wheat, which were used to make bread, cakes, and gruel. I don't know what a gruel is. The Greeks also grew chickpeas, lentils, cucumbers, and nuts, as well as fruits like apples and pears. Perhaps the most plentiful of all Greek crops were olives and grapes, since they required very little space to grow, and the Greek environment had very little space to give. So let's start by answering a couple of the questions that we had on the first one. It says, what are some of the difficulties that we would have if we were trying to grow crops? What's one of the difficulties? But it says it in our thing. What are some of the difficulties in that first paragraph? Good. It's too mountainous. There's very little land. There's very little land to actually grow crops on. No, because you should be writing this as complete sentences. I'm just listing the ideas. You need to be writing complete sentences. Well, I've said it multiple times, so. If you want to write the sentences later, that's fine. But this needs to be in complete sentences to get your full points. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking attendance really quick.
Everybody's here. Okay, hi to everybody.
Alrighty. So there was very little land. Did it say anything else about that?
No.
I don't think so.
Wait, how come plants can't grow on salt water?
Plants need fresh water usually. Salt water gives them too much salt and can kill them. Okay, and the next question says, what crops did you choose to grow? So let's just list some of the crops. Yoshi, what's one?
Squash or
Did it say squash in there?
yeah.
Did it? No. Marty? Olives and grapes were huge ones. And then there is wheat and barley. We'll write that one next. But why did they choose to grow olives and grapes? That's an important one. Go ahead, Marty. Good. They take very little space to grow. Yeah, what's up? There's a lot of water in it and it's shaped like a melon. And I just kind of made that up, but it sounds good, right?
It has a lot of water in it. It's like a milk, but how does it get it to redness on the inside?
I literally have no idea how that works. Okay.
I'm allergic to watermelon, don't you?
You can be allergic to watermelon. Okay, so there's a couple of things about what they chose to grow. Olives and grapes. Focus in class, please. Olives and grapes were grown very, very often because they did not take very much space to grow. And we know that there was not very much room to grow things in ancient Greece. And then one of the other major ones that they would grow would be wheat and barley because they'd use that to make like bread and other things that was necessary for food. Okay, so I'll give you about a minute to make that into a complete sentence. And then I'm going to go read the other half of that page. It's okay, you got this. Huh?
I said he's the only reason falling asleep. But we have to type.
I'm paying attention and hearing.
But you were just like,
I said I'm gonna close my eyes and hear. That's what I do.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and go over and read the second part of this. So, remember, these ones we're listening for the questions that go with Other than growing crops, how else did you and your people survive? So what other ways did they survive? And then I noticed you often go to war with your neighbors. Why? So it says to supplement food production, so to help get more things out of their food. The Greeks raised a variety of animals as well. However, the landscape dictated what animals the Greeks could raise because of the limited land. So again, they did not have very much room. Sheep and goats were very common since they do not need much land to graze on, and they produced very valuable wool for clothing and milk for cheese. Since farmland was so limited, animals were often raised in areas that were poorly suited for agriculture. Growing crops. The Greeks were also one of the very first civilizations to harness beekeeping in order to make honey. It was believed that bees were sacred and that their honey was often a gift from the gods. It was used as food, a sweetener, and eventually a very valuable trade asset, which means they would trade it for lots of money or for different things that they needed. Huh? Exactly, yeah, it was pretty rare. So people had to come to Greece to get the honey, yes. Makes it a pretty valuable thing to trade. So, probably yes. Okay, focus. So important was the bee that they often took on a significant part of Greek culture. Many ancient coins have been discovered that depict a bee, which clearly shows the high status that these insects held in relation to their peers. Just like today, the environment in ancient Greece depicted how humans would live their lives. The mountainous environment and limited farmland forced people to adapt their lives in order to survive, and their farming methods and animals that they raised depict that. So, doesn't say anything about war in that one, so I'm a little bit confused about that question, why it's there.
Maybe it's in the other one, and like the ones that are more.
Maybe. It's possible. Let's go ahead and answer our third question, and we'll skip that fourth question for now and see if it gets answered later on. But it didn't seem to be answered on that one, did it? Anything about war with their neighbors? Not really. So, that number 3, other than growing crops, yeah. Other than growing crops, how did we, as ancient Greek people, also survive? What did we do?
They trade honey.
We traded honey. What else did we do? Good, they raised animals.
For milk.
But it's not honey was sacred.
Well, they didn't really use it to take that milk. They just wanted to eat.
I accidentally connected to the my neighbor's food.
Okay, let's focus on this stuff for now. Okay, so they raised bees and other animals. They traded the honey, which was really important to their economy and making sure they had enough money and supplies to live. And they also raised other animals like sheep and goats because they could get the milk, which could make cheese from the goats, and they could also drink goat milk. And then the wool from sheep would keep them warm too. That sounds gross. Goat milk does not sound good to me. I don't like goat cheese though either. I've had goat cheese before. What? All right, about 2 minutes to finish up this one. I think we're just gonna actually skip this one in general because the answer wasn't there, and we don't have a ton of time, so we're gonna skip that one. But I'll give you about 2 minutes to finish up this slide, please.
Oh wow,
One of my spots we goat cheese for some reason. When you said goat cheese.
Okay, go ahead and type now.
I did type.
Okay.
One big one. Do we have to do our names on all?
No?
Okay. We do it just so we can.
Okay,
That's why I wrote it.
about 1 more minute.
You want to see your skip? Some skip songs good on some skip. Or was it called Skippy or Skip? I don't know.
The peanut butter?
Yeah, that peanut butter.
Peanut butter is called, one of the brands is Skippy, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
All right, let's go ahead and look at our next one. So we are on slide number 4 this time. Slide number 4 is about colonies. Colonies are the different, like, towns, right? So we're gonna talk about the different towns. Our first one says, shush, stop talking when I'm trying to say anything. A study about Greece must include the Greeks' desire for colonies. What is a colony and why were they so important to Greece? We'll answer that question. The next one, number 2, says, describe the process for establishing a colony. What was needed? Why was it needed? And how can you prove that the colonies were successful for Greece? And number 3, other than food, what other benefits did the colonies provide for Greece? So we have 3 questions to answer here. I'm probably going to read about half of it again. We'll answer it, and then we'll do the rest of it. So, colonies. It says, due to little valuable farmland, growing populations, and shrinking space to accommodate the population growth, the ancient Greeks eventually sought to set up colonies throughout the Mediterranean world. A colony is an area under control and influence of another country, typically one in a faraway land. So, Alex, that's something like when, so let's think about it in context of World War II. So if you just listen. Germany, the country of Germany, was trying to take over a lot of Europe because they wanted to spread their ideas throughout Europe instead of what was happening in Europe. Can I please finish my sentences without one of you guys cutting me off? So they wanted to spread their way of living instead of how it was happening before. So they started to take over other parts of Europe. It's similar to how, so they would go to different places around Greece and basically take it over so that they had another colony under their power and they could have more land, do more things, trade easier. So that's kind of what a colony is. So the Greeks were not the first civilization to establish colonies, and nor were they the last.
You're cutting in
The
and out.
Egyptians had the 18th century. Is it bad? Cutting, super bad cutting in and out?
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, if it keeps cutting in, just read this and the rest of the question. Yeah, sorry. I'll do my best. I can't. 18th century, including the most notable, which was the 13 American colonies. So when America of the British people, we were not our own American colony. Okay. Yep. This is a temple of Apollo. This is, well, it's a destroyed temple. Yes. There might have been a war, but this is also a. Yeah. Huh. Uh-huh. So this temple right here is probably it's a picture taken in present day time, which means that back in ancient Greece, this was probably a nice, beautiful white temple with nice pillars and all that stuff. But over the hundreds of years, it's fallen down, right? So our next paragraph here says, establishing colonies was a very risky endeavor. Navigating the Aegean and Mediterranean seas was a challenging task for even the most expert of sailors, and enough materials had to be stocked to allow for the colony to subsist until they could start producing food. Weapons, too, were needed, as it was possible that the Greeks would encounter a naturally hostile population in the land that they wished to settle. Since it was believed that the gods were in direct control of life on Earth and that they routinely intervened in the lives of humans to express their anger and pleasure, it was common for Greeks to please the gods with an animal sacrifice prior to their departure. The Greek god Apollo was responsible for medicine and healing, so future colonists often visited his temple in the city of Delphi prior to show their respect and to pay for a safe journey. Not pay, pray. So they would go to this temple right here that we just talked about to sacrifice an animal and pray for a safe journey to wherever they were going. Colonization did more than provide an extension of the Greek city-states. In addition to supplying some new kinds of crops, fertile farmland, and more space for the growing city-states, it provided an outlet from which Greek culture was spread to other parts of the world. Newly found colonists traded with Persians and Phoenicians, obtaining glass, textiles, and slaves for their surplus of olive oil, wine, and pottery. By the year 500 BCE, the Greek world had expanded to nearly 500 colonies, with roughly 40% of all of the Greeks living in the newfound colonies, such as Syracuse, Cyrene, and Locri. So these are all different areas, but if you look at this map down here, the middle one right here that says Hollis, Hollas, that's where Greece is. It's this part right here. All of these red dots all over the place are the colonies that they established. So they traveled all over the place and created their own colonies all over the place. Yep. So let's go answer a couple of questions over here. So, yes, Yoshi.
Just imagining how Greece looks like.
Ancient Greek people.
Very pretty.
I can. Oh, you mean like Greece? What it looks like? I
Very
can show you.
like a long time ago.
It's probably similar.
Very green.
Maybe just a little bit. Oh my gosh, Greece.
Very green.
It'll be less modern. So this is kind of what it looks like. Oh, is it gonna go? This is kind of what Greece looks like nowadays, with like all of these cool, like the buildings are built into the mountains and stuff like that, and they kind of go up the side of the mountains. It was probably definitely not this like building, like the buildings were not all there. It was much more like smaller homes and things like that. But this is what Greece looks like. It's a nice area. I would very much like to visit Greece one day. Yeah.
I know that. I was wondering how it looked like a long time ago.
Well, there's no actual pictures of it. What? There's no retiring from being a teacher, but
Just gonna say she does not like to retire.
can I retire? I'd have to get a different job. There's no like retirement. It's a long story, but there's no pictures of ancient Greece. All you get are maps. So
Just be a fisherman.
I don't like to fish. I don't want to kill a fish.
Alright.
So let's move on. Back to our thing. Let's answer this question, please. What?
Can you say that you don't want to kill a fish, and that's what Daddy said that's why you're a vegetarian.
Yeah, I don't find that funny though. Okay.
You were just walking.
What is a colony?
Colony.
What is a colony? Yeah, but it's usually derived from the original religion. So it's like a colony Does it have an actual definition if you look at the thing? Oh my goodness, I see a definition. A colony is what?
The colony is an area on control and
Good. A colony. So honestly, you could copy and paste this sentence over. That is what a colony is.
I wonder how
First paragraph.
Look at that. I wonder how big the oceans were before we started coming. Like the huge.
The oceans are still the same size.
Are you sure? I
Um,
thought they were even bigger a long time ago.
No, the yeah, but the oceans are still the same size. It's just that the world spread apart.
I thought the mountain water was like
Yoshi, type this, please.
dark and
To Greece. Why did they want to spread out among the world? Good. They wanted to spread their culture.
gray.
Okay. All right, almost done. Let's look at our next one. It says to describe the process for establishing a colony. What was needed? Why was it needed? And how can you prove the colonies were successful for Greece? So first of all, how did they get there? What did they have to do? Travel, pray to Apollo for safe travel, right? What did they need to bring? Say again? They needed an animal sacrifice when they prayed to Apollo, but once they left on their journey, what did they need to bring? I already read that, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, I'm aware. Now, what did they have to bring on their journeys? Weapons. So they brought weapons. What else? What's the other important thing?
They were really prepared.
No, Apollo is the god of travel. Hermes is the god of messengers.
Period or
They're all commas.
okay.
What's the other major thing that you need to think about? Think about if you're going on a long road trip. You don't necessarily bring weapons. Supplies. You bring supplies, food and water to get you through your trip.
Why doesn't it have this one?
They figured it out.
Oh, they made the one.
That's where the water comes to.
Okay. So they needed weapons and supplies. The supplies got them to those locations. The weapons were to take over the other locations, right?
But how many were there like in a group?
I don't know that for sure.
Weapons.
And then finally, how can we say that the colonies were successful to Greece? What do we know about them? Were there a few colonies? A lot of colonies? Good. There were colonies. Yeah, they were all over Europe. We're going to say there were colonies all over Europe. Okay, so there were colonies all over Europe, so that's how we know that they were successful. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes on this one.
Would you use the bathroom?
Bro, that's none of your business.
Did you- did you go to the bathroom?
Quickly.
No, you gonna take forever at home. I'm for real. You got, oh yeah, that is funny.
All right, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit so that we can look at our next question here. So it says other than food, so they would go and they could get different supplies and stuff from these other colonies that they inhabited. I am literally in the middle of a conversation or sentence, Yoshi. What other benefits did the colonies provide to Greece? Probably slaves. What else did they provide? Well, we already know food. It says other than food. So probably weapons. There was glass on that list. I saw that. Huh? Other advancements, like other inventions? Okay, so some inventions. It also spread their culture. That's a really big one, honestly. The ancient Greek people really wanted people to follow their religion and their culture, so they would take over these places and colonize in these places so that those people would have to be under their influence of Greek culture. Their culture is a super important thing to them. I think we talk about their culture tomorrow. And like, their culture is really cool. I really love ancient Greek stuff. I don't know if we have a video. I'll look to see if there's one for tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, probably tomorrow. I don't think we'll have time today.
What time do we have to start packing up?
The same time we pack up every day.
Like for an hour from now. No, not like that, but I'm saying.
Okay, we're gonna do one more minute and then we're gonna do our last one.
Oh,
Oh my. We skipped number 4 on this specific slide.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Are we on number 4 right now?
We're on slide number 4, yes. I mean, you don't have to write exactly what I wrote. This is just kind of an outline.
Miss Jones, can you go back down?
Yep, I will go back down in just a second. A colony isn't technically just a group of people that runs a town, because anybody can just run a town, but these are people that are under a specific like rule of a separate country. So like they got taken over and are now under the rule of Greece.
So it's like the roof of a country,
Kind of, yeah.
people that run that country,
Yeah.
the president.
I mean, the president is one person. I'm aware. Huh? Yeah. And the culture. Yeah.
I barely even noticed there was a camera blocker on this computer.
Yep. I'm aware.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh my god.
I know a lot of things about technology.
I don't.
Alrighty. Okay, we're gonna look at our last one because we do not have that much time left. So number 5, slide number 5 here says, we're gonna read the paragraphs in a minute, but it says, imagine you are teaching another student about trade in ancient Greece. You need to make sure that this student receives an A on their upcoming test. What top 7 trading facts would you tell them about trade in ancient Greece? So we need to come up with 7 facts about trade that seem to be the most important. Okay. So on number 4 right here, I'm going to read to you. Maybe have this one open as you go so that you can be typing in the different facts about trade as you go. We should have 7 by the end of this. Okay, you only need 1 per box on this one. It says, establishing and maintaining colonies was not the only way for ancient Greeks to obtain the goods needed. Far earlier than Greeks sought to expand their presence in the Aegean and the Mediterranean world, they traded amongst themselves and with other civilizations. The most important resources that the Greeks could not grow effectively was wheat and grain. These two products were imported from Egypt, Italy, and areas around the Black Sea to create bread and cakes. So could they grow wheat and barley very well? Not really. So what did they have to do? Trade what?
I was going to ask you,
Well, they traded. Did they say what they traded for?
like, honey.
I don't think it necessarily says just yet, right?
I
Yeah,
thought
let's try to write these in full sentences. Say that again.
Did they trade grapes?
They probably traded grapes. Yeah, they had so many grapes that they probably traded that. So they traded for grain and wheat. What countries did they get wheat and grain from? What does it say? Not just there's specific countries.
Areas around the Black Sea.
Good. So let's just do Egypt and Italy. So they traded for grain with Egypt and Italy. That's a pretty big one. It's hard for them to grow it where they were, so they needed to do it. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep reading because we're kind of running low on time, so I might just read the rest of this and then have you guys come up with the 7 facts about trade on your own. So it says, the Greeks also imported, I said that weird, the Greeks also imported a variety of products that were crucial for their survival. Timber was needed to build ships and homes, and metals were needed to create household items and weapons. There's another couple of things that they needed but could not get on their own. They had to trade for it. Yes, Yoshi?
How did metal get on Earth? I don't get it.
It's part of the earth. Yeah, they're natural elements, natural things.
So they basically are kind of like dig into the ground as they find metal.
That's pretty cool, though. Slaves were also heavily imported to work in the mines and tend to the farms. In ancient times, it was very common for people to become slaves if they were on the losing side of a war, or if they had committed a crime like piracy or theft. Treatment of slaves varied widely. Some city-states allowed slaves full citizenship rights. Others offered slaves fair trials, and many, such as Athens, believed that slaves were full property of their masters and could be treated however they wanted to. So another trade thing was slaves. They traded slaves a lot
Why slaves?
because they didn't want to do the work on their own. Because their parents, yeah. Even though ancient Greece turned to trade due to its inability to grow food easily, its location in the Mediterranean Sea made access to a variety of goods rather easy. With Italy to the west, Africa to the south, and Asia just east of the Aegean Sea, the Greeks found themselves in the middle of the known world. Access to luxury goods such as jewelry and ivory, as well as essential goods like timber, wheat, grains, and slaves were easy to find and obtain. So real quick, look behind me, right? You have Greece is like here, right? Italy looks like a boot over here. And then you got Asia right here. I spelled that wrong.
Oh, so you're trying to spell Asian.
No, I didn't. How do you spell Asia? Why is it a stupid word?
A-S-I-A.
Thank you.
Names.
Asia,
I don't
Greece,
even know how to spell.
Asian.
Italy, and then down here you had Egypt. Okay, so this is all water right here. So Greece is right here. They could easily just take a boat, go this way to trade for things. They could take a boat and go this way and trade for things. They could take a boat and go that way and trade for things. They're right in the middle of the current, like the ancient world, right? This is where the ancient world was kind of settled. They were right in the middle, so it made it super easy to trade all of these things. That's a really big thing for them. Their location made it so easy to trade.
Wait, don't did they speak an ancient language or did
They spoke Greek.
how do you speak Greek?
I don't know how to speak Greek.
Miss Duffy's brother knows to speak Greek.
No, he knows Icelandic. I don't think he knows Greek. Anyway, let's keep going. However, even though access to trade was easy, actually conducting the trade was extremely difficult and dangerous. Shipwrecks were common as any of the nearly 6,000 islands that populate the Aegean Sea could become a hazard at any moment's notice. Pirates would make a living robbing and looting trade ships in the open water. The magnetic compass would not be invented for another 1,000 years, so sailors often got lost trying to find their destination. Some sailors would sail at night and try to use the stars as guidance. However, that made many of those 6,000 islands even more dangerous because you don't really see them. And then finally, even with these dangers, it seems that trade and colonization increased rapidly as populations grew and needed access to more products. Researchers have spent years examining recovered ships that had wrecked the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean seas. They discovered only 2 ships that dated back to the 8th century BCE and 46 from the 4th century BCE. So, there's a lot about trade right there. And that it was dangerous, difficult, but it was necessary. So, I'm going to have you guys finish this up on your own. There's about 2 minutes left, and you need to get 6 more facts about trade. So, complete sentences, fill out the rest of this on your own, please. As you finish up, you guys